Okay, this is our fourth and final example set for jQuery selectors. In this example set we're going to be looking at advanced selectors and a little bit of manipulation, like iterating over what you've selected. So before I get into our first example, I just want to point out that here I've created a variable, the list, and what it is it's grabbing our unordered list element. And knowing that, we get set up for our first example, which is using context selectors. And what context selectors are is if you already have a jQuery selection that you've run your query on, but you want to narrow it down more, you know there's a couple elements within that selection that you'd like to pick out, that's where context selectors come in. They let you pass in a context, whether it's our variable the list or another selector string, and then narrow down the objects that have been returned from that context. So in this example I'm saying a pretty straightforward query of just all list items, and then I'm passing jQuery a second parameter, which is the list from above. And what this does is it looks right at our unordered list object, and it narrows our search down to within that element and only selects list items within that parent element. In the second example we're using another context selector. This time we're using jQuery's find method, which can be called on any jQuery object that you've returned from using a selector. So here we have the list, which is our variable from above, where we call just our unordered list in a query, and we're calling the find method on the list, and in that find method we're passing another selector string of just list item with ID special item. So the whole query is just a way of saying within the list find the list item that has the ID of special item. Using context selectors is a great way to get some performance enhancements out of your queries, because limiting your query to a specific node on the DOM helps speed things up by preventing you from searching the whole DOM every time you're trying to grab something. In this next group of examples we're going to be working with two methods that kind of work hand in hand with each other. The first method is index, and the second method is get, and these are both methods off the main jQuery object. The first method, index, will return you the actual index number of an individual jQuery selection item that you're looking at. And so drilling into that example, here we have special node, which from above is our list item with the ID special item, which we found using a context selector from the list. And now we're just calling the index method on that jQuery selection object. If we hop over to our console, we can see that the index being returned is just 3. So now that we have that index, we're going to just do another example to show what get does. And here we're taking our all items object, which from above is just every list item that's contained in our unordered list, and we're calling get and passing it our special index, so it would be get 3, and altogether that's using all items get number 3, which if we take a look at the console, that returns us our third list item, which is actually in this case using the get method. We don't get back a jQuery object, we get back the raw HTML DOM element or node. And so this may be helpful in some situations where all you really need is the node, then you would use index or get. But if you really want to interact with special item here using jQuery's methods, we would pass it back to our jQuery function, and it would wrap it with all the functionality of jQuery, which is what we're doing in this example here, where we have jQuery special. We're passing it our special node from above, which is the raw HTML node we grabbed using get, and it returns us our wrapped jQuery object. Most likely you're not going to need to use get or index that often, so don't stress over it if you don't fully understand it. Um, an example case where you might need them is if you're working with a dynamic list of DOM elements that you don't know how long it's going to be or it's adjusting, and you're doing some kind of indexed iteration over these elements. You may find that get and index come in handy. So our final example happens to be such a scenario where we're iterating over a selection of jQuery objects and outputting their index and then wrapping it. So here you can see we're just calling jQuery's each method, which takes a function passed to it and then executes that function for each of the elements in the jQuery object we're running it on. In this case we're using all items, which is our selection of all the list items that we've created from above. And for each of these items we're going to store this, the reference to this, in our variable item raw, which will return the raw HTML node for that item. We're then going to return the item wrapped with jQuery, which we pass the raw node reference into jQuery. And then for our output we're going to also add in the index so we can see what number it is. If we check out our output here, we can see we're iterating through each of our list items, outputting the index number, the raw HTML node, and then the jQuery selection. These examples for our nodes that have styles, attributes, and IDs, you can see where they come into play. And that concludes all our examples on jQuery selectors.